Well, good morning, everybody. Yesterday at church, we saw such an amazing work of God. Some friends of ours' daughter, who we would consider to be like family, she rededicated her life to the Lord after a few years of walking away from Him. And it was just so special and so powerful and impactful to see what God was doing in her life. And it took me back to when my own daughter had walked away from the Lord for a few years. You see, we came to know the Lord partway through our daughter's childhood, and then we raised her in church from then on out, probably like from middle school through her high school years. And when she got into high school, she met this boy that didn't like God and didn't like her liking God and following God. And so he really pulled her away from God. And it was just so heartbreaking for us to see. And it was gut-wrenching to be in that situation and not knowing what to do and not being able to really do anything, because it seemed like the more that we tried to talk to her about it, the more that we tried to pull her out of that situation, the more she dove in and wanted to go toward Him and not toward God. And it was just, like I said, it was so hard for us to be in that situation, and we just didn't know what to do. And after, I don't know, probably a year and a half, maybe even 2 years of this going on, we realized that what we were trying to do wasn't getting anywhere with her, and it was only making the situation worse. And so we figured out that we just needed to trust God with the situation, take our hands off of it, and allow Him to do His work. And something that my dad told me a while back was really special to me. He said, God has no grandchildren. Think about that. God has no grandchildren. All of us are God's children, including your children. God doesn't have this relationship with your children through you. He has a personal relationship with your children because they're His children as well. And He doesn't want His relationship with them to be through you. And so oftentimes God will allow our kids to go out into the world and to experience it, so they finally realize that they don't want that, and that instead they want a relationship with Him. But the special thing about it is, when God does this work, number one, He is the one who is doing the work. And the reason that He's doing this work is because He wants the relationship with your children to be individual between Him and them, not through you. And it's oftentimes us as parents can get in the way of that, because we want to raise our kids up in the Lord, and we want to draw them to God, and we want to keep them on track. But the problem is sometimes we get in the way of our children having a personal relationship with God, because we're the ones who are playing the Holy Spirit in their life to draw them to the Lord, instead of allowing the Holy Spirit to do His work so that He can draw them to the Lord, and so they can have a personal relationship with Him. And so oftentimes God will allow our children to go out into the world, figure out that they don't like it, and when they come back, they have this new personal relationship with the living God, not based on their parents' faith, but based on their own faith. And that is the faith that they need, because you, as their parents, eventually you're not going to be there with them all the time. You can't be the Holy Spirit in their life that's guiding them to do everything that the Lord wants them to do. The Holy Spirit has to have this personal indwelling in them to allow that work to take place. And we saw that work taking place yesterday. And so it's my advice to every parent to get out of the way and to allow the Holy Spirit to have a personal relationship with your children, because God is faithful. He is faithful. Know this: if you're in that situation right now where your child has walked away from the Lord, and you're like, Lord, what's going on? We raised our child up in you. We had them in church. We taught them your commandments. We taught them how to pray to you and how to read your word and how to have this relationship with you. And yet they're walking away from you now. And you can have this feeling as a parent of like despair and hopelessness, just having no idea what to do and feeling like you can't do anything. But I'll tell you, in my personal testimony, in my personal situation with my daughter, it wasn't until we took our hands off of the situation that God really started to work. And I'll tell you this, it wasn't probably 2 weeks after we finally told her, hey, you know what, if you want to do this, if you want to go out and have the world and really ruin your life, then that's on you. We've done everything we can for you. And so if you want this, then you can have it. And it wasn't 2 weeks after we took our hands off like that and told her, you can have what you want, that she broke up with her boyfriend and she started coming back to the Lord. And it was just the most incredible feeling for us, because we went from having this feeling of hopelessness and despair to all of a sudden seeing God's faithfulness and his goodness, not just toward us, but toward our daughter as well. And I'll tell you that God has the same level of faithfulness and goodness toward your children too. God has no grandchildren. Your children are God's children, and he cares about them more than you do. I know that's crazy to think about, right? I don't think there's any relationship more special and more intimate than the relationship a parent has with their children. But even as deep as that goes, God has even a more special and a deeper relationship with your kids than you do. And he cares that they would follow him and they would love him and they would get to go to heaven to be with him even more than you do. So you need to take your hands off of the situation and you need to allow God to work in your child's life so that he can establish a personal relationship with them. That instead of you being the Holy Spirit in their life, that he, the Holy Spirit himself, could be that person in their life to do that work. You can only do so much as a parent, but God can do way more. So trust God and allow him to do the work. Take your hands off and allow God to be in control. He is sovereign over all. He cares for you. He cares for your kids. He loves all of you as his own children, and he will do the work. So God bless you, and we'll see you here next time. I know. God will do this work. Trust him. Put your faith, hope, and trust in God. He has proven himself to be faithful time and time again in your life. Think of all the things that he's done for you. He will be faithful. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.